All right, so it is nighttime outside, and you can see the difference in the shop with the lighting that I added. Now, over here, right there, I'm actually gonna change the way I have those three lights there. But as you can see, the lighting system has really brightened things up a great deal from what it was looking like earlier before I put up the lights. So, as I said, the shop is a complete and utter disaster right now. But I'm still trying to put everything together to figure out how to make things work in this space. So, um, not sure how I'm going to, make things better, but as you can see here, so just kind of going over, some tools that I have. Obviously, I've got the rigid sander there. It's got stuff all over the actual table of it. And here, let me just flip this around real quick so I can see. All right. So, all right, right here, I've got the rigid sander, and I just made a small little cart. I don't know if this is the best idea, continually, but I'm trying everything at the same level. I made this little Ryobi little stand here, but I didn't have any more wheels in the shop, which I did order a pack, which I need to pull in here and take these blocks off the bottom so I can roll that around. So I think I'm gonna do that. So in these initial stages of the shop, I'm just trying to make things be mobile and usable. I'm not really so much worried about aesthetics right now because to me, just as I'm learning with the woodworking, it seems like things need to be kind of, you want things to be level, you want to have a nice flat surface, and something that I've learned with my big MFT, it's got 4 caster wheels on it so it can roll around. It's not, because I don't have it with the caster wheels that raise it up off the ground or lower it to the ground so that it doesn't move at all. There's some wiggle to my MFT table, which I found there's some drawbacks to that. Also, you know, as I've acquired more tools, obviously the space just gets smaller and smaller with the accumulation of tools. But then, when you're thinking about the job, you're not really thinking about necessarily, or at least I wasn't really thinking about the space that I was going to store the tool, and I was simply thinking about there's a job that I want to get done, and I'm going to do it, and so I would actually, buy the tool and then worry about the storage later. As far as storage is concerned, it's very difficult for me to kind of sit down and hammer down how I want storage to be, simply because I'm always thinking about I'm about function over form. I would love for things to look nice, but I understand that without the experience and skill, things that you make may not look good. But as long as it's functional, my MFT table may not be perfect, it may not be the greatest, but it's functional and it's been working for me. My lumber cart that I made, it may not look beautiful, it may not be elegant, but it's functional for me. And the same thing with a lot of these carts that I've built here, which have been mainly 2x4 construction. Um, there's just a lot of things that I'm still learning, even applying the actual the caster wheels to things. It actually presents its own set of challenges. The ones that I've been ordering on Amazon come with a bolt, and the other day, or actually when I made the wheels I made a little cart for my wife's office. Nothing finished, it's not finished at all. It's just a little cart to put her press to be able to make like t-shirts and stuff. And she wanted to, she wanted it up off of her desk and down under the table so that it's out of the way, because she doesn't use it as often as some of her other things. And so all I did was make a little platform. And this is just the way that I'll start to build how I've learned to start building carts is I'll start with, I'll buy the wheels first, or get the wheels, and I'll make a base. you know, and whatever the dimensions of the actual device, like this particular router table here, you know, I measured my width and depth, and that's how I made the actual platform that it sits on, so it has the smallest footprint possible. And then from there, what I'll do is I'll cut out the top and the bottom. On the bottom, I usually make like a 2x4 construction to be able to attach the wheels to, or something similar to that. And so I make the bottom, make 4 pieces to do the 2x4 frame underneath, and then I'll try to fix the caster wheels to that. I'll talk about caster wheels more specifically later, but what I usually get, I usually have those bolts that you get from Home Depot. It looks basically like a screw, but it has a bolt head. It's nice and thick so that it actually holds the caster wheels on. I typically buy a box of those, which I run through pretty quickly, and I'll just drill up into the ply to hold those on. I'll do a pilot hole first, and then I'll drill those bolts in. And that's the most convenient way to do it. The bolts or the wheels that I order online typically come with a bolt, you know, a nut and a bolt, and that's a little bit more complicated because you actually have to have space for that bolt on top, which actually takes away from the usable space of the height of the table, or you'll have bolts going up through the bottom, and I don't really like that. So anyways, I'll getting back on topic. So basically I'll make the table a specific size, or I make the top plate and the bottom plate, as I said before. On the bottom plate, I'll have like a 2x4 construction base, and I'll put those 2x4s together to make a frame that I feel like is going to be strong enough to hold whatever weight's going to be on top. And then once I have the top and the bottom plate, and I put the 2x4 frame on the bottom, I put the caster wheels on the bottom plate, and then I'll put the top on top of the actual, the bottom plate with the wheels, right? And then, so basically I'll set this piece directly on top of this piece, but this would be caster wheels, right? And then I would move that assembly right up next to my MFT table, and I would take whatever tool and put it on top of that. And then I would measure from the top part of the tool to my MFT and subtract the difference, and that is where that would be the height of these legs. And that's how I actually get everything to close to or an exact height. Now, that works for general things, just overall. Where I end up having issues is this garage. It's on a slope. Most garages are on a slope to run water outside the house. You know, if there's a lot of rain, you don't want things pouring in. And as a result of that slope, what I've come to realize is, like, if I make my tables, like when I made my table saw stand, when I put the table saw facing out the garage, then it's perfectly level, it's good, and it runs smooth. But when I flip the table saw and I'm facing inside the garage, there's a little bit of a dip because the floor is sloping down like this. And so when I go to cut wood, it'll actually get hung up on the actual, on the MFT or whatever other table. So I haven't figured out a solution around that, because basically that's counterintuitive to the whole idea of having the modular shop. I wanted to be able to arrange things in any way, and they would all be on the same level plane, because, you know, if this tabletop and this tabletop here are on the same level plane, in theory I can lay a board across here and cut it and it will be straight. However, if the board is cocked in any way, when I make that cut, then I'm actually making an angled cut and not a flat cut. So that actually takes some of the functionality away from having like all your benches at the same height and mobile at the same time. This is just something that I've learned in my journey. Like, you know, had I known this ahead of time, maybe I would have planned things a little bit different, but I'm trying to work with the situation as it actually is now, because, you know, as I mentioned, and you'll probably hear it 100 more times, because I have to do both automotive repairs in this environment, as well as you know, I'm doing my little, you know, trying to grow my DIY skills. I'm always having to move things and change things around. It's a nightmare to do, but I'm hoping that one iteration after another, that it will get better, that my designs will become more refined, because I'm at the rough stage of design, you know, almost like cavemanish as far as how I'm trying to design things. I'm thinking extreme function first, but without all of the experience of knowing if I you know, make a cabinet of one way, i.e. like if I make a cabinet like this, yeah, it holds it up off the floor. Yes, it's close to level with this, but like in this instance, I just threw this together because I didn't have casters. Without the wheels, it's a nightmare to move. So this is not the most ideal solution for me, because when I want to move the car in here to do some repair, I'd have to lift this thing up to the other side of the garage. I'd rather unlock the casters and roll it away. So that's one of the things that, you know, has to be. Now, as I'm talking out loud, and a lot of times, you know, when I talk, I actually get more ideas from myself just from talking out loud. What would be interesting is if I created a bunch of carts with caster wheels, right, on the bottom so that they roll. But then if I was able to, the same way that you have tables with leveling feet, if I was able to integrate some kind of a leveling system in this portion of a build, so that no matter where I was in the actual garage, whatever slope, I could actually alter the table up and down. I think that's an excellent idea. The concept I understand, but I would have to sit down and think about the engineering involved to do that. I think that's actually a fabulous idea, to actually have a table that's mobile on the bottom, maybe even have kind of like those retractors where, you know, when you push your foot down, the table can roll, but when you kick the lever up, the table sits flat on the ground. But then having some adjustment at the four corners of the table to kind of keep the table level no matter where you put it in the garage. I think that's a great idea. This is kind of a rambling video, so if you want to listen, you can. If you don't, that's fine too. Now, one of the problems I have with those wheels that you use, they protrude from the cart, and you have to lift them up. It's great that it actually sets the cart on the floor, because then you don't have as much movement. Like right now, this is not moving as much as, you know, a table with wheels, right? It's a lot more sturdy. However, those wheels actually stick out quite a bit. I have them over here, but I'm not gonna dig them out. They stick out quite a bit on the sides. So when you start trying to put cabinets together, they don't fit together like how, like, you know all your kitchen cabinets or cabinetry fit together. You know, that's the goal that that is what I'm trying to solve for myself in my own shop. I want things to be sleek, clean, close together, very little wasted space, have a space for everything, but a usable space where I can reach in, grab the tool, use it, and put it back. But there's so much variability to that, because you have to think about the fact, let's say nail guns comes into my mind. Say you start off with a pin nailer and you build a cabinet that houses your pin nailer. Great. Well, then when you go get the brad nailer, you need a different size, different shape space for that. But at the same time, it would be ideal if it looked somewhat uniform. But then the framing nailer, which is all the way at the other end of the spectrum, is so much bigger than a pin nailer and all of those other nailers in between. And so how do you create a solution where things are functional, they look good, but you don't have a lot of wasted space, right? So if you got a huge framing nailer over to, you know, that would be, I guess, your right, and my right, on the right side. And then over here you got a pin nailer that's smaller. So you've got this kind of a cabinet going like this. So you would want to use this space over here in a way that's constructive and productive. So like maybe you could put like the nails for the devices over on a strip on this side, if you can kind of get the image of what I'm saying, and then the pin nailers here, and then on this other end the whole cabinet is taken up with the framing nailer. The thing is, you would have to have all of those nailers to do that. Matter of fact, I can kind of show you a little bit of what I mean. So this right here is the Milwaukee pin nailer, right? Let me see if I can find the frame nailer. All right. So put them in the right hand. So you see the significant size difference. So if I wanted to put both of these in the same cabinet, right? There's a lot of wasted space if I put it at the lower part or at the upper part. And there's also depth space when you look at the side view. So, but in my opinion, it would be best to store these tools in the same location, in the same place. Because if you did that, it's going to be easier to find the tools, it's going to be less stress, and at least for me, it'll make me more productive. You know, another thing that I would add into that is, just imagine if I build a cabinet, right? Like a regular cabinet. And on the bottom of that cabinet, I had caster wheels, right? So that I could wheel that cabinet around. And then let's say I'm actually putting, you know, I build a slot for the nail guns, going from, say, left to right or right to left, however you want to have it. And then I design it to where there's an upper section where you could put a lot of the nails. So they're all in one place. But then, you know, as I said, it's a rolling cabinet. So then if I'm working on the MFT over to one side of the garage, I can actually pull that cabinet away from the wall and roll it over to my area and put it in, almost like it's in my hip pocket. And so as I'm working on my project on my MFT or wherever I'm working in the shop, my tool is never that far away, right? So that's the concept that I'm going for this shop. Is just that simple things. You know, like I remember before when I was drilling from, you know, through a board into end grain, and either the board, it wasn't holding, or maybe, you know, when I put it together, it's all twisted because the wood actually dried or warped on me during the time that it was sitting in the shop. All of these challenges have put me through so much stress, because conceptually I know what I want to do. Skill-wise, I'm not there yet, but I'm not giving up. The same way that I run into problems working on my cars, and I had to overcome it because it had to be done. I'm determined to overcome these challenges in the shop. I'm determined. I feel like if someone else can become a fine carpenter or a fine woodworker, whatever, I don't see why I can't as well. So, I mean, just look at this. The lighting up in here, it looks terrible. It doesn't look great. It doesn't look good at all. But it's serving the purpose. What is the purpose? For me, this is like the levels of DIY. First, if I can't see in here, things aren't going to get better. So you get the lights for $169. It comes with, it's a 10-pack, right? I still have a few on the table that I can hang up. So first you get the lights, and you just put them up there any way you know how, and plug them in any way you know how. And then from there, you actually have more operating space in your shop to like look around, because it's kind of hard. When I'm in the house thinking about this problem, I'm not able to really look at all the nuances and all of the nooks and crannies and say, well, if I'm on, like, say, SketchUp, trying to learn that and trying to design a cabinet, and not recognizing how if I design a cabinet in one way, it's going to cause me problems with my miter saw on the other side of the shop, right? It's like, I always talk to my wife like this, in the sense that I call it the toilet paper roll theory. Now, this is just a filter, obviously, but if I take this toilet paper, or if I take this as if it was a toilet paper roll, the closer I put it to my face, the less I can see, right? But as I pull it away from my face, as I pull it back, I'm able to see peripherally around the thing. And the further away I get it from my face, the more I can see this in conjunction to the things around it. You know, the forest for the trees thing. So I found that when I would try to go up on my computer and do SketchUp, I would just learn that, you know, what am I building? What am I designing? I don't know the dimensions. I don't know this. I don't even know what I'm going to store in that particular thing. I find that I get a lot more done when I just come out here, I look at this table, And I'm like, you know what? Let me make something that's about the same shape as this. Let me put a you know, a base plate, whatever. Let me put some wheels on it so I can move it out of the way when I want to do whatever. And is that me growing? I don't know. I can't say. But at least I'm getting something done. You know, I put the lights up, they're up. You know, I made this little cart. What I'm going to do right now, since it's not super late, it's about almost 6 o'clock, I'm going to put the wheels on this cart, right? And then that way this will move around like most of the other things. The goal is I don't want to have anything in this shop that can't be moved around easily. Because if it's not easy to move around, it's going to make it a nightmare to do other things. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to work on these wheels, and yeah, I'll probably take some clips of that.